Welcome to the Property Nomads Podcast. We have a fantastic guest lined up for you today. We're going to be exploring women in property. And in order to do that, I've been joined by Laura Darling. Laura works for Star Property, but has been in and around property for well over 20 years, has faced multiple stigmas as such from what is traditionally a male-dominated industry, property. So in order to speak about her experiences and what she's doing now, and she's doing a lot of great things, so you're going to want to listen out for this. Without any further ado, Laura, thank you for your time.
Hi, nice to speak to you, Rob.
It's been great looking through the bio that you sent over, because you started working in property since a relatively young age. I think you said 13, and it's just gone on from step to step. So before we sort of go into women in property as such, give us a bit of more of an in-depth background about yourself, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. So I started working really young, kind of after school, and in summer holidays. My mum worked as an office manager in a local conveyancing solicitor's office in Hove, where I was brought up. So I used to go in there and kind of just do office junior roles, photocopying, post, that kind of thing. Back in the day when searches, you had to go to the council and do it. It couldn't be done online. I used to do that. And I used to meet the estate agents, and it all seemed quite glamorous with, people running around and, buying and selling and getting things over the line. And I carried on doing that for a few years, and then went to work for local letting agents. And property, my mum used to buy and sell property when I was young as well, with a view to buying it cheap, doing it up, flipping it on, and was affected quite badly, unfortunately, in the recession in the early 90s. And yeah, I've always been around property. I like property. I love being a bit nosy and looking at how people live and what they do with property. And then I went to work, like I said, I was at a letting agent, and then I went to work for a property company called Allsop that were based down in Brighton, as a temp on reception, and they offered me a full-time job as a property manager. And I stayed there for, I think it was just over 15 years, and ended up managing various investment portfolios for clients that we had, including the fixed charge receivership portfolio, which was hugely diverse. And when I was given that, it was a really different step up into property and management, and really learning how it worked in a completely different way to anything that I'd done before. And we had anything from flats, houses, to massive sites, so many different issues we faced with security and things like that. And then from there, I moved, due to some company restructure, I moved across to an independent estate and letting agents who wanted kind of a fresh pair of eyes on their portfolio. Stayed there relatively short period of time, because it wasn't actually what they wanted. In hindsight, it turned out. And then I went into a completely different side of property and started doing client accounting, which I was quite skeptical if I was going to enjoy. But I stayed there 6.5 years, so I must have quite enjoyed it. And it gave me a really good, solid financial feel of how back-end accounting works within property and residential property and management and lettings. And then this opportunity came up to come and work at Star, going back into property management and heading up their portfolio, which they are their own landlord. We've got very few external clients, but in the main, we are the landlord. And it was such a great opportunity, I couldn't say no. So I came to Star just over a year ago now, and my job role's changed quite significantly since I've been here. I've gone from managing the portfolio, overarching into finance, and now I work directly with the MD, Max, as his EA, and I deal with all the refinance restructure that we do here as well. So yeah, I've had a long period of time in the property industry, and covered quite a few different areas within it, which I love. And to this day, property never bores me, so it keeps me on my toes.
100%. It is one of those industries where every day is different. It's always good to work with people, and no 2 days, as you say, no 2 days are the same. Just to put some numbers on it, Laura, actually, before we do that, I would say to people that are listening to this interview, do go and check back to the interview I've done with Max, the CEO of Star, a few episodes ago, because that was absolutely, bonkersly brilliant, that episode. But just to put some numbers on it, Laura, how big a portfolio have you managed? Because we're not just talking a couple of 100,000 here, we're talking millions and millions, aren't we?
No, the portfolio at the moment at Star is approximately valued around £65 million of property, and that is all over the place. We've got property in Ireland, Isle of Man, property local to Brighton and Hove, HMO properties over in Eastbourne. We've got some properties overseas in Montenegro, Tenerife, Israel. We've got a really diverse portfolio of residential, mixed use, commercial properties as well, and are looking at buying more commercial at the moment, with resi options above that we can do certain things with. So it's a large portfolio, and only looking to grow. I would say it's the largest portfolio that I've ever worked with in my time, even when I was at Allsop doing the fixed charge receivership portfolio, which did peak. I wouldn't like to put a value on it at the time. Obviously, due to everything that was going on, the receivers were really busy at the time with what was going on in the market. But the Star portfolio, I think it's just so diverse, and it carries such a lot of opportunity to learn and develop myself and my knowledge. It's a fantastic opportunity.
Just going back to the fixed charge receivership portfolio, I mean, people that listen to this that might not know exactly what that means. So are you okay just to elaborate on what that means?
Yeah, so when people buy a property with a mortgage, if they default on the mortgage, the fixed charge receivers will be appointed, and they will kind of be brought in and oversee what happens with that while the debt is sorted out. So whether it is sold in auction or sold by private treaty sale, or the fixed charge receivers will manage it. They have a duty of care to ensure that the property doesn't lose, any value, isn't damaged. So we, as a managing agent, or quite often when a fixed charge receiver is appointed, it's quite often very quick. So we would frequently be told on a Friday afternoon at 4:30, we've just been appointed on this property, you need to go out, it needs to be secured, we need to have 24-hour security on it. And I would be there to work with the contractors that I had nationwide to go and do that. Any chattels that were in there would have to be itemised and inventoried. And then we would manage the process all the way through to putting it in auction or to placing it with a local agent in the area and selling it, and the debt being cleared.
Fair enough. That sounds, the first word that comes to my mind was entertaining, but obviously if people get into circumstances, it's can be quite unfortunate. But I imagine that job would have kept you on your toes. You've probably pretty much seen everything doing that job.
Yeah, it was very stressful. It moved very quickly. It was always lastminute.com. If it was going to go wrong, it went wrong on a Friday afternoon at 4:30, or over Christmas, bank holidays, that kind of things. But there was so much different property I got to see there. Massive sites, so many problems that you wouldn't necessarily think of. We had horses left on sites by gypsies, horses escaping, having to get the RSPCA involved, protecting animals. A huge issue with sites back then, and probably even more so now, is people breaking in and then making a claim because they've injured themselves.
Wow.
Even though they're in the wrong because they've broken in, it was the fixed charge receiver's liability. So we used to have to spend a lot of money on security, making sure the properties were safe. But we had one particular site they'd broken into, but there was like a paving slab, and the person who'd broken in broke his ankle and launched a claim against us. It's madness, absolute madness.
That's British bureaucracy at its finest, is it not?
Completely. You break into our property, but you're going to sue us because you've hurt your ankle. Mad.
Unbelievable. Is there any as we're on the subject of sort of odd stories as such, without going into like ridiculous detail, are there any other things that have happened, or was there a particular standout story that you think, I mean, it's so insane?
I could speak for hours of the amount of things I've seen in my time. Probably one of my favorite tenants in all the time I've been doing this job was a lady in Brighton. She was a fantastic tenant, came into the office month after month on time, paid her rent in cash, and she was a working woman of the night, shall we say. And she always had a story, absolutely fantastic. And when we used to go and do her her tenancy inspections, it was a 2-bedroom flat in Brighton, and one of the rooms was set up for pleasures, shall we say, and it was always an eye-opener. Another tenant we had, funnily enough, in the same building, he accrued arrears of, I think it was just short of 48,000 pounds. We could not get this guy out, no matter what we went through in court. We finally got possession the day before I was due to get married, and I was in court, and the judge let me leave early after giving evidence because I was rushing to get married. There's been so many, funny ones, some sad ones where we've lost tenants over the years, tenants leaving strange things behind or forgetting they've left strange things behind. But overall, I think I've been really lucky. I've had some really lovely tenants, and whenever I've left, I've had a select few that have always, thanked me and been grateful, and I think that's what has made my job so rewarding over the years.
I would imagine so, with some stories like that, and I can imagine, my imagination runs wild with the potential setups that tenants may or may not have in their homes. You mentioned marriage, which actually brings us on nicely into sort of what we're here to discuss, to chat about today. And without sort of doing myself a disservice, it's a bit difficult for me to put myself in a woman's shoes and being in the industry and doing X, Y, and Z. But you mentioned marriage. You also said that you had children at a relatively young age. So overall, as a woman, how have you found your experience so far in property?
It is male dominated. It is a male dominated industry. I think probably the last 10 years, I'd say there are definitely more women coming up through it. Estate agency side, I would say it's still very male heavy. I think I did have children young. I got married at 21, and I was bringing up my stepson, who was 3 at that point, and then I went on to have my own children at 21, 22, and then I had my youngest daughter, who's now coming up 14, when I was just 29. And it's hard. It's hard balancing a job and children as it is, and I think in a quite male dominated industry, it's even harder. I have come up against, I've walked into business meetings full of men and been the only young female in there, and know that I've been thought of as, not knowing what I'm doing. Sometimes being underestimated is a good thing, because when you do manage to nail something, and you nail a deal or a meeting, people are like, oh, okay, she actually knows what she's doing, which I quite enjoy. I quite enjoy taking people by surprise. I think it's such a fulfilling job in property, and I would strongly recommend women, if they've got an interest, to come forward in it. But I have faced I've been told that I wouldn't ever go any further in my job because I had children and my focus, I couldn't come in early or I couldn't work late, and that was said to me by another female within the company who was higher than me at the time. And it's been, it was really disheartening, because I would, I was always the person that would work late, take the phone calls outside work, if I had to travel, I would always do that. I would always go above and beyond. And I think when you're told that quite openly and blatantly, it does feel like a kick in the teeth. The only advice I could offer now is I'm now in my early 40s and my children are, older. They're nearly 21 and nearly 14. And I can put a lot of my time and effort now into my career, which is what I'm doing. And I think it's also good to show them as girls that you can do it. You can have it all, as hard as it is, if you really want something and you want to do well in an industry. And there are so many opportunities, and I've definitely see, on social media and LinkedIn, more women doing certainly more the investment side of things, which I don't think they did up until quite recently, and being confident in their capabilities and their understanding.
Do you think then that there's, trying to think of the best way to phrase it, do you think that there's this stigma? Do you reckon the stigma will be around for, quite a while, because it's already been around for quite a while, if that makes sense? I mean, obviously things can change over time, but as I say, Rome wasn't built in a day. So do you think the way to sort of not make it, a male-dominated industry as such, is to get more women involved and doing stuff? Do you have any other ideas on that? That's probably a really badly phrased question, so I'll hold my hands up.
No, I understand what you mean. I think there's quite a lot of women now doing the letting side of things. I think if you go into pretty much any high street letting agent, that there will be a female quota of staff. I think what there isn't so much of is women going into the investment side, the financial side. I think it is very male dominated in the whole. It's a bit of a boys' network. It's you scratch my back, I've got this off market deal, and it is very much who you know. And I'm not, unfortunately, but in the property investment industry, it is male heavy. And I think if more women are brave enough and bold enough to come up, if you're going in at like letting agent level and understanding that, and you want to grow and learn more about it, I think the opportunities there are huge. And it can be done. It's just, I think it can be quite scary. People look at me, and I've been told by numerous people throughout my life, oh, you come across really confident, you walk into a room and you know what you're doing. No, far from it. I walk into a room and I have what I call sweaty back syndrome, and I think, oh my God, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do, and there's all these men here and they know this, and it's buy, sell, and I can do this for you. But if you can hold your own, and your figures and a bit of common sense, and you can talk to people, I really think if you can just talk to people on that human one-to-one level, it goes such a long way. For example, I went up north last week to look at some property, met people I've never met before, met them in a car park, was going to see these properties, didn't know what I was going to come up against. There were several other men there that were big property investors. It is quite daunting. But if you just talk to them like, they are just human beings at the end of the day, and you learn from these people, no matter what situation you're in. Somebody will say something that you probably, will pick up on, or they'll look, when you're looking at a building, they might look at something you didn't see. So I think just to take every opportunity that you can get from people, and believe in yourself. And as a woman, I think it's that I'm the worst for putting myself down and not believing in myself, and thinking probably still, oh well, men know more than me, when actually not all people, that's not the case. I've been in the industry a long time and I do know the industry fairly well. So to have a little bit more faith in yourself, I think would be definitely something that more of us need to do.
Fair enough. So I say taking something away from this, and self-confidence, and that goes across, I say both sexes. I'm just going to say all sexes, because I'll probably get in trouble for missing someone out in society, which isn't a good thing. I guess on the flip side, though, Laura, is that when you say that, if you site viewing and stuff like that, and you might pick some stuff up from other people. I'm sure other people are picking a bunch of stuff up from you as well, because
I'd like to think so.
Going back with, well, that's what got you to run through the numbers at the start. It's over 20 years experience managing portfolio that's, say, around 65 million pounds. It's it's happy days. I'm looking at you going, I'd love to be in that position at some point. As well. So what I'm trying to say is it's got to work both ways there, surely.
Yeah, I think I'm like I think I've said, I'm terrible for doubting myself. And as you say, I have been in the property industry a lot of years, and I do know a lot of a large amount. There's always, every day is a school day, and I always say that there's always something out there to learn. But I am pretty knowledgeable, and I would like to think that if somebody asked me for my advice, I could sit there and look at what they've presented me and give them my opinion and my knowledge. Certainly working for Star in the last year, what I've learned a lot from Max as well. His knowledge is huge, and I think there are so many people out there that can enrich your experiences and your knowledge, and you should take full advantage of that. And I'm more than happy for people to take that from me as well.
What other sort of top tips then would you give? You mentioned self-confidence a second ago, which is, I think imperative. But if you were sort of speaking to younger women now and saying, they wanted to get more involved in property, what top tips would you say to them apart from be confident?
Do your homework. Look at all different avenues of property. It is a diverse industry. So find an area that really does take your fancy and that inspires you, and you don't feel like you're getting up and going to work every day. I think that's a huge tip. Dragging yourself out of bed every day to go and do something that you don't enjoy or that you're not passionate about is just soul destroying. There is so much knowledge out there now on the internet, which I didn't have when I started. There are podcasts like this, people to listen to within the industry. There are so many networking events you can go to and learn from other people's experiences, bad experiences as well as good. I think finding somebody that you find is inspirational is really important. I'm lucky to work with somebody that is very inspirational and very, very knowledgeable in Max. And will always take the time out to sit with me and explain things to me and help me understand certain things. And I think not being afraid, not feeling that you can't do that because you're female, pushing boundaries all the time and having a can-do attitude to anything. I think not just in the property industry, to be fair, in general in life, if you believe you can, you will.
I couldn't agree more with that. It kind of goes back to that self-confidence, doesn't it? You can achieve anything you set your mind to. Is just crack on and do it. Some great tips there. So for people listening, take them away, write them down, and action them. A thought that came into my mind, and I'm a bit random, so apologies in advance for the question. Now I've not able to speak for every single man on the planet, but sometimes, if a woman wants me to do something and, they give the old flash of the eyes and the eyelashes and whatnot, it sort of kind of, makes me feel like I should actually do it. I'm going to ask this. In your time in property, has there been a time or times where you've needed to get something done, or you're trying to use influence in different ways, and you've given a bit of a flash of the eyes and you've managed to convince someone that didn't want to do something to then do something?
I'd love to say no, but I think the power of persuasion, with a nice smile and asking someone nicely to do something, I think always goes a long way. And I'd like to think in my time I haven't used my feminine ways, but I think there are times when it has gone a long way. And maybe if somebody else of the opposite sex had asked, they wouldn't have probably got the same reply. But that said, I feel I have pretty much always been, I may have been under, people's expectations of me may have been low, but I think I've always surprised people and been able to deliver whatever I've said I would do over the years. So people may have looked at me and thought, oh, she's not capable, but I have always managed to deliver, and I would like to hope that I continue to do that. But yeah, if someone smiles sweetly at you and asks you nicely, I think most people will bend out, bend and agree to do it. So
yeah,
that's the main thing.
Yeah, fair. I've just been curious, to be honest, if I asked a question. And then obviously you spoke about where you come from, where you are now, and challenges that you've had in the industry, and that other females might be having in the industry. So given where you are now, you say you're working with Max at the moment, who seems, again, go back and listen to the episode a few episodes ago. Great guy. Seems like you're getting almost like a very hands-on mentoring there as well. So what's next for you then? You obviously really enjoy doing what you do, and you've got a lot of pressure on yourself in terms of numbers, but what's next for you?
I don't see myself going anywhere other than working for Star. I love my job. I love the people I work with. I work with an amazing team of people. I see myself staying here and growing the portfolio, growing what we do, the services we offer. We're not just solely doing the investment side of things. I think as Max probably touched on in his interview with you, we're trying to offer an end-to-end property service so that we can do portfolio building for external clients. We've got the insurance, we've got the construction. So my plan is to stay here and work alongside Max and help him grow that, and really look at anything that externally will help us become stronger and bring that in-house and grow that within Star. I'd like to, and I don't think it's unreasonable to say that we can double the size of the portfolio in the next few years with the amount of investment opportunity that we have hopefully coming in. I work, like I say, with a fantastic team of people. We have each other's backs, and we all are singing from the same hymn sheet. We all want the same for the company. We value each other highly. We value the company, and we value the opportunity that we've got here within the Star Group. So my plan is to stay firmly where I am, hopefully, because I love it. I love it. I love what I do, who I work with, and where I see our future going.
I just want to point out to people that have listened to this on the podcast that might not have seen a video for the last half an hour, you've just been smiling like a Cheshire cat. So it's the proof's in the pudding. You definitely enjoy doing what you do, which is
it.
Key.
It's hugely pressured, and I've come from working in a part-time environment where I used to literally work 9 to 2:30 or 9 to 5. And I didn't switch my brain on until I sat down, and my brain switched off when I left, and I didn't bring anything home, to a job that is, I would probably say, I mean, my working week is 40 hours. I probably work 55. There's always more to be doing. I could probably push that even more, and it is stressful. I can't lie, there are some weeks it is really stressful. Before Christmas we had huge amounts of refinance going on, and getting everything across the line, and yeah, it's hard, but the feeling of achieving something and knowing that I'm part of a bigger picture just makes me feel brilliant. And I know I'm doing so much and I'm valued, and I think if you've got that, then you're not working. It's a pleasure, it's become part of who I am. It's a massive part of who I am, and I haven't had that for a long time. And alongside my children and my family, my job is a huge part of who I am now, and I can see a change in me, and I know it's probably what I needed a long time ago, but because of the children and working, family and stuff, it took a bit of a backseat. So I'm just so grateful that I've had the opportunity to come and work here and have this part of my life.
And that's what happens when, you know, a company builds such an ingrained culture that you get people, you know, everyone's happy to turn up and it doesn't feel like work, so they're enjoying doing what they do. One last question before that's it, and then something that my business partner sort of spoke about a little while ago when we were looking at our power team, that we find actually quite a few people in our power team are women. And the reason for that is we find that women just have this tendency to get more stuff done, basically. Whereas sometimes, with all due respect to men, it's, you know, too much back and forth and, you know, who's got the biggest set of balls and blah, 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 blah. Within Star, do you find that quite a lot of your power team within Star are quite a lot of them women, or do you have like a fairly even distribution within Star?
We have, so the property management team is predominantly women. And I think, as you say, they're just, and this is no disrespect to men, they just can do a lot more, a lot faster. They're very good at multitasking. They know what they've got to do and they get it done. They don't procrastinate. It's bang, bang, bang. And I think we're really lucky. The girls we've got in property management team are great. We've taken on an apprentice who works on our community interest project, Harvey, who has never worked in this kind of environment before. But I think him coming in and working with such a great team of women, hopefully they will impart their multitasking skills onto him. On the acquisition side, it is male heavy. We have Pat and Rich who do our acquisitions, and obviously Max as well. And I think that's definitely where the divide comes in. You know, like I said earlier, the lettings and management side tends, you know, there are more women in it, but the acquisitions, the more chartered surveyor, RICS, those kind of qualifications seem to still be male dominated. And I think if there's anything I would like to hope for the industry in the future, is that more women go off into that side of things.
And as you said earlier on, and you know, say if I was to summarize it, as you said, it's to have that self-confidence, you know, be confident, go ahead and crack on and do it. Would you have any other words of wisdom before I ask people how they can get hold of you? Any other final words of wisdom?
No, just go out there and do it. Find something you enjoy, find something in property that you enjoy, and run with it. And there are people out there that will help you. You know, if you knock on enough doors, you ask enough questions. I think being curious, definitely. And like I say, asking the questions, go and do it. Because like I said, if you find something you enjoy, you will never work a day again in your life. And there's so much out there, so much opportunity in the industry.
Amen to that. Final thing, if people want to get hold of you, how can people do that?
They can contact me either by phone on 01273 526 800 at Star Property Hub, or my direct email is laura@star-property.co.uk.
And as usual, we'll put those links in the show notes. Well, Laura, that's incredibly insightful. Thank you very much for your time, and onwards and upwards.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for taking the time.